A warm welcome to all our viewers to our series Natural Medicine. Today, again with my favourite guest, Arthur Trunkel. A warm welcome, dear Arthur. I'm already introducing you as my favourite guest because you brought a technology to us here in the last few episodes from Tesla, where I honestly didn't know it existed. And I'm surprised that this has not yet spread worldwide. You said there are a few thousand devices on the market already, which is really great, but what still interests me is the motivation. How did you manage to put this technology together, build it and carry it out into the world? Well, I'm more of a pragmatist, so I saw this primarily as a medicine cabinet for myself. I thought if I should have a problem in the family, I have a device with which I can do something. And so I talked about it with family and friends, and then they also wanted a device like it. And half a year later, it doubled. More inquiries. And that's how it became established in our circle of friends. What is your professional background? I'm a businessman. I basically started working with transformers. I used to build real estate, so basically a completely different area. But I've always been interested in health and water. I've been eating vegetarian for 27 years. I've been to many nutrition-conscious congresses. I've looked around and never would have thought that it's possible that I would someday produce devices that give people more life. I'd never thought it that possible. These are contemporary phenomena. Who is still doing what they once learned? Exactly. So, dear viewers, what are we showing today? It's about this wonderful device, where electrons, so energy, is transferred directly into the body with this rod. As here with this tube, which receives energy from this flow of electricity. I can put this flow of electricity directly on the hand, for example, or on your ear if you have an earache. By the way, tinnitus, have you ever had experience? Yeah, numerous testimonials. So not psychologically, because the psyche requires a different approach. There is fear or something that plays a role as a conflict, but with people who have a problem on the mechanical level, an inflammation for example, where the sound no longer arrives correctly and then generates a tone, we can use it on our ears, but not only the ears, but also the bone in the back. So we basically have to put this handheld probe to the bone here, and we need about 6 to 8 weeks until this tone decreases. And people have told us their experience that then they could concentrate on other things. So pain, inflammation, up to chronic diseases all have the same thing, electron deficiency. And now we put these electrons where the deficiency is and give the body time with this energy to be able to do its own healing process. Exactly. It's so easy to explain, isn't it? So simple. It's fascinating. When I touch it like that, it's cold. Exactly. When I hold it to my ear, I immediately notice that it's warm. Maybe hold it to the back of the ear a little. Also include the lymph. The lymph is the sewer system. That means we get everything out of the cell. All toxins, all waste products. The intercellular tissue has to be transported away. That's why the lymph is so important, to get everything back out of the body in the end. And you once said in an episode that if I have that on my ear long enough, it will get really warm. That means I also produce a local fever. Exactly. So the body actually directs all the energy there for cooling, so for healing. And then you heal it twice. Exactly. So actually local hypothermia, and we measured it with a thermal imaging camera that therapists also use every day to see where does the energy flow to. We had a goalkeeping coach from the second Bundesliga. He had knee problems, and the club doctor said, "Okay, we have to operate now." He would have been out for 10 months or more. And then we simply examined the knee with the handheld probe and a thermal imaging camera, and it didn't warm up, half a degree. So, and then we looked further. The calf was fine, but 2 spots were found on the thigh. And then the physiotherapist said that there are 2 small muscles attached to the knee and that they're tense. And they're in the tension in a permanent state. That means even if they had operated on the knee, the pain would still have remained. You make it visible because the blood flow is increased. Exactly. And then it's warmer, and then you can see it on the thermal imaging camera. Exactly. We can set it to 0.1 of a degree and see where the energy is going. We had a case in Mallorca. It was about a skipper who could no longer move properly. He wanted to go to Madrid and have his spine checked. I said, "I can use it on your spine." Didn't notice any heat, but on the left side here, At the hip, there was a spot the size of a coaster where it got very red. The body drew energy there, and that means that he lacked the support force, regardless of the conflict. What else was there? And he used it there for half an hour and was then able to put on his own shoes as usual while sitting down. He hadn't been able to do that for months. We used to do a similar thing in the medical establishment where I used to work, so we used infrared thermography, especially for early detection of breast abnormalities. When there was increased blood flow somewhere, that was different on the right than on the left. There was a suspicion. Then we did the ultrasound and then later effectively ran electricity through the chest, because the current also takes the path of least resistance. So, at best, it showed a malignant tumour, boiled it out, and the thing was getting better again over several sessions. Right. Do we have the same thing here? Without having to send amps through the body in a natural way, and one of the greatest minds, Nikola Tesla, did that over 100 years ago. He was badly injured once and didn't go to hospital, but went home and healed himself with his own Tesla oscillator. And there was one more experiment. I'll present that in my fourth book now, Tesla, the Unknown Healer, because there are many devices in hospital that determine diagnoses on the basis of Nikola Tesla. Whether it's the power grid or the radio, everything is based on this technology. And there was an experiment in Stockholm in the 1930s with mentally handicapped children, where two classrooms were made and they were exposed to high frequency for half a year without the teachers or the children knowing about it, in which classroom they're in. And after 6 months, Mr. Maxwell disclosed the study and said they found out that with the children who were in that high-frequency classroom, they could concentrate better, had better creative ways, and their intelligence increased. Amazing! And then he let himself be carried away to one sentence. If the children were to stay in this classroom for another 2 years, they would catch up with their peers. Did Maxwell do that? That wasn't Maxwell, that was the head of the school. That was the namesake, probably just the same name. And we had this case from a merchant with twins. And the twin girl didn't get enough oxygen. And the doctors always said she would never go beyond kindergarten status. And she started over 2 years ago to use this device on the Motor Function Centre, and I saw her for the last time in November last year. And that is her mum, and she told me that she reads classics now. So that means the spiritual field has unfolded. Like a parachute, and that's what it's about. Nikola Tesla wanted a Tesla coil in every classroom. Why? Because he too, in this famous picture, is sitting in front of the flat coil. That is, he sits there and ponders, and it's said of him that he also recorded things. Where did he take them from? He docked somewhere and just received the information about his machines and just build them. That's something you can hardly believe or understand how it works. But it is very exciting, yeah. And that's actually built in here. Here I have this Hertzian wave and a scalar wave or Tesla wave, whatever you want to call it. And the special thing is, it doesn't just shoot electrons and an abundance of frequencies, but also it brings the water in my body into a hexagonal structure in the body itself. And look at this particular shape. When I first saw it, the first prototype had a copper wire here, and we only had to set the whole thing to 120 degrees. I always wondered, why 120 degrees? Until a friend of ours once did a water test and structured water 5 minutes, and then sent this water to a water laboratory, and before that it was tap water, which has a destroyed cluster formation. And after 5 minutes, we have a hexagonal structure here. Repeated several times, we found beautiful crystals, and these 120 degrees are the inner angle in the hexagonal structure, in the inner honeycomb. Okay, and that is information, also this dynamic. It's precisely coordinated, this number of turns. And Nikola Tesla said that the universe is built on the numbers 3, 6 and 9. And these findings have been incorporated here. Hence, the 144.015 megahertz results in this cross sum. So you can calculate that here, and you'll keep coming back to 3, 6 and 9. You told me briefly today that you had a picture made of this hexagonal structure with the water, and we'd now like to show this to you briefly, dear viewers. There we see it, a current picture, an incredibly beautiful crystal that was created. This is now the hexagonal one, where you can even see this opening inside, and these micronutrients can then be transported inside here, into the body, and that's the art of helping the cell. Replacing the cell water. It takes my cell an average of 10 days to exchange the cell fluid. But if it takes 15 or 20 days instead of 10, then the bacteria that live in the cell have a greater toxin buildup. That means more acid. More acid reduces conductivity, so the problems begin again. And we're now helping the mitochondria from outside via the radio wave, like a conductor, to set a beat. And now they can play a nice song in the orchestra again. Good example. And then you have the electrons crossing over. Exactly. This hexagonal structure, and then we have more hydrogen electrons hanging there. Exactly. The free radicals can bind again. Interceptor, or can move them to inflamed areas to speed up the healing process. And we can really see that. So I've experienced thousands of people with acute pain in lectures or with therapists. And it really has. I can locate the spot relatively quickly because it turns red at that spot with a thermal imaging camera, even without it, because I only have to go to the point where these symptoms appear. Then I move along with the antenna. I find it relatively quickly, this point. Then hold the point probe on this point for 15 to 30 minutes. And suddenly they say, the shoulder pain, how can that be? So they're surprised. And then think, well, maybe the pain wasn't that great before, or it would have gone away. But we have confirmed and proven that 1,000 times over. Otherwise, we wouldn't have these satisfied customers, because the device isn't cheap. But of course, there are amounts in the high-frequency range, in the tens of thousands. Rehatron, TerraCell, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000. And they all have their eligibility somehow, but they all have a metallic resonance. And we are water beings, and the Russians managed, with the help of water, to bring these electromagnetic vibrations on it. Due to the hexagonal structure, the water is able to store 3 times the amount of energy. We know that water can absorb heat. We can boil water for tea, but it can also absorb energy electromagnetically. And when I drink the water, where does this water go? Into the body. The information is distributed, and I can then use the handheld probe to support, treat the individual points, and reactivate from the outside, where I have major problems. It's amazing. So if you really change your diet a bit, drink good water that transfers electrons, and our body, which is actually a battery, that means good sleep, relaxation. So this calm, to find this balance again in life, these are all things that come with it. So as not to fall into this hustle and bustle, because there are so many problems out there, but we just need to find a place at home where we can find peace and harmony. With hyperactive children, for example, it's always said that they don't have an excess of energy, but a lack of energy. They actually lack the opportunity to produce melatonin to calm down. How does it look here? Have you already had experience with hyperactivity? Because if you add extra energy here, do you sleep better? Are they calming down? Well, there's a sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems, and the body regulates that. That means it's being activated. So I found one thing for myself. If I used it here at the motor center after 10 p.m. at night, I'm awake until 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. You can no longer sleep. Then I can no longer sleep. I'm wide awake. I then sit down and continue writing my book or researching things. And with 80% of the people, it's like that back here. The sympathetic nervous system is stimulated. But for 20%, they want to sleep. The body simply wants to regenerate. They then want their peace and quiet and are in this other phase. But it can also be that I use it at 10 o'clock and sleep better afterwards. That also happens, but the lungs are also important, and the grounding, the foot reflex zones that we have to support here, because we don't have different interfaces on the body for nothing, and the Creator had a specific reason in mind why everything's in here, in the hands, in the feet too, and we can activate that. People come up to us and say, I have a wart on my foot. I say, okay, where do you have it on your foot? Look at the foot reflex overview. Which organ is affected? Because this organ has a lack of energy. So it will not show on the foot at all. Why is it exactly at this point? So the organ, it's only a cry for help from the body that you have to recognize. Understand the language of the body and you will always stay fit. Sure. The body wants to communicate with us. The cells can communicate, only we no longer listen to them. And at some point they'll say, well, then he'll just have to learn the hard way. At this point, I'd like to show you, dear viewers, a short experiment that we quickly did in advance, where we make a ball swing over to, tuning forks to 430 hertz. Both are tuned to exactly the same frequencies. Exactly, so just have a look what happens. So, now let's look into experiment 2, because now you've shifted the frequency on one. Are they no longer in harmony? Exactly, and as soon as we're no longer in harmony, I can sound one tuning fork, and the second never resonates. Exactly, we'll show you that quickly. Good. And here's the same thing, this water resonance that the Russians developed via this electromagnetic wave must be precisely coordinated with the water. And since we vibrate similarly to the hexagonal structure with the body, it then also has this effect. The other devices have a metallic resonance, which means that capacitors are built in, which bring very sharp flanks into the body. We don't have that here. We did a lot of tests in the EMC test laboratory, and we had lab technicians, and they were stunned. They've been able to experience anomalies with this device and have said that they've been doing tests for 10 years. But what they experience here, they've never experienced before. That means every organ in the body somehow comes in resonance via a frequency that this device emits and starts to resonate again in sync, right? Not just the organ resonance, but also the mitochondria, because they all vibrate in the same way. They're these little bacteria that have been in us since the beginning of time, and we'll get them activated again. And when they work properly again, the cell is happy. Sure. You also wrote a book about this, finally. I think there are several books, but I saw one. It's a bigger, thicker book. Did you just explain all the technology in there? First of all, the history of what happened in the last 200 years. I've researched old books, old patents, from the Tesla shower to the electric kiss. What at that time was used experimentally from the Chinese to the Europeans, but also the Americans, from Lakhovsky, who achieved incredible things. Also Reif and all these famous scientists, and then the Russians picked it up. They've been able to research freely behind their Iron Curtain and did these things over first in the field and then scaled down more and more to then have this portable handy device to be able to take anywhere. You can take it with you on a plane, take it with you and go on vacation. What is this book called? Handbook for High Frequency Energy. And now we have the second edition, so we sold about 10,000 copies last year. We've never expected this great demand. But I simply noticed that the quality of time has changed. People are open to it. They don't want to go along with this pill swallowing anymore because they just notice In the pharmaceutical industry alone, cancer kills how many? 700 people per day, and of these, 690 people have fully trusted academic medicine. Well, there's a dead end. We have to rethink it, and the time is ripe when we as biological beings also recognize these regulating laws. I think it's just the collaboration that's needed, isn't it? Not working against each other, but working with one another. Everyone like me, as a layman, understands the technology behind when I add electrons to myself. My battery has more energy, my mitochondria have more energy. The self-healing powers are greater, so the logic is there. I'm surprised that this has not become more widely established. We would, of course, put this book in our shop, quanticina.ch, dear viewers. If we put in a book like that and encourage you to deal with it more, then that's simply to get more knowledge about our self-healing powers and about these wonderful achievements of Nikola Tesla. It's nice that it's finally here again. Exactly. So what other experiences have you had with this device? We actually have arrived in top-class sport. So it's national teams, whether football, handball, also abroad, who use these devices for regeneration. So, well, one person has metabolic problems, the other has cellular muscle problems. And the athletes tell me that they now use this device every day. It's of course not yet in use 1,000 times, of course, but I think we are on the right track. That we are talking about top-class sport, about competitive sport, people who compete every day, and also the corresponding results. I wrote a second book about it, about top-class sport, and we're now organising a congress in Mallorca this year, where we also meet these people who are at home in top-class sport to familiarise themselves with the technology. A very personal question, dear Arthur. What drives you? Well, honestly, I never wanted to build or produce this device. I just wanted one for myself. I'm a person, if I'm convinced of something, I use it. And so my path started 27 years ago with the diet, then with water filter systems, and then I wanted one of those universal devices at home. But since I couldn't buy it anywhere, I had to build it. And friends and family then said to me, Arthur, this is your way. And basically, you have to be the one who makes this accessible to people. And we didn't think even about all those adversities and hurdles that you'll experience during production. We just started and did it. And that's the result today. Do you need a medical license for this? This is a water vitalizer. We structure water. We have it here too. Exactly. The medical aspect will certainly follow at some point abroad. This is a topic that we can't come up with at the moment. Thankfully, because that's the next tedious step that you have to overcome in the end. Well, we were told abroad that people had used the device for chemotherapy. Chemotherapy, which causes great physical problems in the metabolic area, in detoxification organs, and survived it brilliantly. That would be an additional device, so to speak, but these are things that will hopefully be resolved at some point in the next generations. 3 more short questions. Who is the product suitable for? Anyone who wants to stay fit, healthy. Everyone who wants to solve current problems, blockages, and just wants to be a little independent, who wants to take health into their own hands. It's not just individual, you can use it for the whole family, right? For therapists, friends, family, neighbourhood. So that's really a cooperation. And then I saw that you can pay off such a device. So what monthly fee are we talking about? Depending on the duration, it's 130 or 135 euros a month. So that really everyone can finance it, afford it, exactly. Great. If I want more information on this, regardless of the book, where can I get more information to look a little deeper before I spend so much money on it? Yeah, there is the possibility via your link, which is now displayed here, to be able to read further information. And of course we can send extensive information to the people by yourself. Then you just have to write to us, dear viewers, to the address shown here, And then we can provide you with information material about this product. And what I find really cool, of course, is just to test it out. So you just have to see it or feel it on your own body. And I think the enthusiasm will be there immediately, having a medicine cabinet like that at home, right? That's right. Great. So, dear Arthur, it was a great pleasure for me that you presented this product here. I'll certainly do more episodes about it. I'd also like to hear testimonials from people who are already working with it. Maybe you can refer a few Swiss people to us. Of course. People who really want to present their own miracle. Absolutely. And to see this enthusiasm from these people would be great. There are a few hundred now. Yeah, send them an email. They should contact me. Super exciting. Then I can show you, dear viewers, what other people have experienced when treating themselves with electrons, with hexagonal structures, where you can easily bind free radicals, reduce acidity, and even get into oscillation. That would actually be the summary. And all of this with such a small device. So it's unbelievable. As small as it looks. Handy. Well, it's only part of the device because what you don't see on camera at the back is still the device that looks like a shoebox. We haven't shown you that yet, but we will. Show it to you in another episode. So, if you have any questions, you know what to do. Arthur, all the best. Thanks for being here. All the best to you too. See you next time.